You might have tuned into this video thinking you're gonna see lots of cool Drees houses and Drees neighborhoods, and you will. You'll see plenty of that. But far more important and far more urgent are the things you're not going to think to ask, and the things the sales consultants will tell you are industry standards that I promise you are not. But let's go ahead and start out on a positive note. You should know Drees has been around for a really long time. So I don't know about you, all right, but when I'm buying a new construction home, I want a builder with deep pockets that I know is gonna stick around. So a strong history has that, and you do get that with Drees. In fact, when it comes to future reliability, Drees really does check all the boxes. Like, this is a builder with some serious staying power and a solid reputation to back it up. First off, they're not a small-time operation, all right? They build in 8 different states, which tells you they have the infrastructure and experience to handle growth and deliver consistency across markets. According to Builder Magazine, Drees ranked as the 41st largest home builder in the entire US. Okay, now that's not a fluke. That's the kind of ranking that only comes from years of doing things right. And speaking of years, right? Drees has been around for a long time. We're talking 95 years of experience in custom home building. So that kind of legacy means they have weathered all kinds of markets, and they're still going strong. And then there's the awards list. They've taken home some of the biggest honors in the industry, like America's Best Builder, National Builder of the Year, and the National Housing Quality Award. Those are all major national awards, all right? So we're not just talking about like local or regional recognition. Okay, so obviously, with all of these awards, Drees is doing something right. So when it comes to reliability, Drees Homes easily earns an A+ in my book. And yeah, you heard me right, all right? I'm actually giving them a report card grade on each of the things we talk about in this video, because again, you need to know the good along with the bad. Next up, let's talk about Drees design features, all right? Now, this is another place they really have a lot going for them. We're talking about choices, innovation, how good and how much of a variety do they have with their design? Well, about 1/3 of their homes are single story, while the other 2/3 are 2-story. So that's gonna give you a nice balance depending on what kind of layout you're looking for. Lot sizes range from standard suburban lots to over an acre. In some areas, you'll also see a mixture of roof styles, some with high-pitched roofs, others with some more like moderate slopes. You'll see a blend of 2- and 3-car garages, all right, including quite a few J-swing options. You'll even find some modern design elements mixed in. So across their lineup, they offer 67 different floor plans, which is pretty impressive, all right? That's a solid amount of variety for buyers to choose from. But let's go ahead and talk through some real examples, all right? First house has a clean, contrasting look with white brick and brown trim, plus your J-swing 3-car garage. This next one also shows off a 3-car garage, but with a straight drive instead of J-swing, has a nice high-pitched roof, modern front door, covered porch. Yet another one stands out because it has a white brick exterior and a rear entry garage on a 70-foot lot line. All right, that kind of setup is very rare in new construction. Now this next one's really different. You have a 3-story home with an elevator and 2 balconies, so definitely on the modern side. You also have a sleek look with a lower pitched roof and decorative stone. You can even get a sprawling ranch vibe on acreage with a rear entry garage and a high pitched roof. So you really have some fantastic design options, but I want to give you an idea of elevation choices as well. So elevations come into play more when you're considering a new build. All right, it's different than design choices in that it shows how many different ways one floor plan can look, all right? So we're talking now about how the builder can change the brick, adjust the roof line, add stone, install trim, all right, that sort of thing. Now, I will tell you, Drees doesn't offer the absolute best here, all right? Honestly, like, if we were gonna say like best elevation title out there, that would probably go to Toll Brothers in my opinion. But Drees does still offer some solid options, okay? So a great example of this is the Lorenzo. Your 3A features brick with stone and a soft arch at the porch, plus a 2-car J-swing garage. Then your 3B goes in a totally different direction with heavy stonework, faux shutters, an awning, and a 3-car divided J-swing garage. Then there's the 3C, which combines decorative decorative trim with the awning look. The 3D flips the style completely. It ditches the arch for a contemporary look with clean lines and like a much lower roof line. Yet another version of the 3D shifts to a more natural wood tone with less contrast, but keeps the modern style with an awning and some decorative stone. The variation that you see in architectural styles from one elevation to another, okay, this is why it's important, because it means your neighborhood has a much better chance of feeling unique instead of cookie cutter. So overall, design quality and variety of choices earn Drees an easy A+. Customization is yet another big strength for Drees Homes, and if building from the ground up is what you're after, they're one of the better options out there. In addition to elevation choices, they offer customization in 3 main areas, all right? Design, which is gonna be like non-structural, structural changes, and then lot selection. And across all 3, they give you a lot of flexibility and support, which is honestly not really all that common in the world of production builders. Starting with design customization, this is where Drees really shines. They provide a ton of resources to help you through the process, especially if you know, like choosing colors, finishes, styles, if that doesn't come naturally to you. Their design center tools are super organized, and the amount of online information they offer is seriously next level. The idea gallery is huge and includes everything from bohemian and coastal to farmhouse and contemporary styles. Their website also walks you through frequently asked questions like here's an example. My door has a dent in it. And then it goes on to explain how the first door you see isn't always your final one. So it's stuff like that that shows they've really thought about the full experience. So if you want your home to feel custom, all right, without getting overwhelmed, they make it pretty easy. On the structural side, they offer a decent amount of customization as well. For example, on the Brendan floor plan, you can do small adjustments like converting an office into a media room, but you can also go bigger, like combining several rooms into an independent living suite or adding a 3rd car garage. So that's a nice range, and it's more than what a lot of builders will offer without sending you like into full custom territory. Then there's a lot customization, and I'm telling you, this is where Drees really pulls off something pretty rare. All right, they have a build on your own lot program, which almost no other production builder offers. So if you already own land or you've got your eye on a particular oversized lot, Drees is a builder that can actually work with that. It gives you a lot more freedom in where you build, not just what you build. All around, for anyone wanting flexibility and support through the new build process while still using a production builder, all right, Drees is a good choice for that. So they earn a solid A+ for customization. Okay, now we need to talk about the Drees warranty, because so far I've been handing out the A+ like free candy, and here's where we're gonna see Drees really takes a nosedive. Most builders offer what's called a 1-to-10 warranty, and what that means is 1 year for general workmanship, 2 years for systems like electrical and plumbing, and 10 years for structural issues. But here's the thing, Drees skips the 2-year part completely, all right? They only offer a 1-10 warranty, 1 year for workmanship and 10 years for structural, and that's it. The missing 2-year systems coverage is a big deal because that's the time when things like your air conditioner, plumbing, electrical issues could all pop up. So without that protection, you are on the hook for repairs that other builders would usually cover. Like seriously, almost every single builder provides the 1 and 2 year warranty model. For being such a high quality builder in so many other areas, it is really surprising that they don't offer a more complete warranty package. So if warranty is a big concern for you, and it should be, all right, this is something you really want to think seriously about. So overall, when it comes to their warranty, all right, are you ready for this? I'm giving them a D. Okay, now let's talk about their location options. So like I mentioned earlier, Drees is a pretty large builder, so it's no surprise that they offer buyers plenty of location options. They currently build in 23 different communities, and what I like is how evenly those are spread out across the Metroplex. So if you're looking north, you've got options in McKinney, Salina, and Prosper, like some of the hottest areas for new construction right now. Heading out east, they've got communities in Lavon and Rockwall, which are growing fast, but still a little more relaxed compared to the northern suburbs. Over on the northwest side, Drees builds in Argyle and Northlake, which have that kind of almost, I guess you can almost call that like a rural meets suburban vibe. And you've got some good schools there, plenty of space. Now if you're leaning southwest, you're covered there also with Mansfield. What's also great is that Drees isn't just focused on the exurbs, all right? They've also got communities in inner suburbs like Allen and Arlington. So if you want to be closer to the action, all right, that's an option too. Now, one area where they are noticeably absent is the far southern part of DFW. So places like Midlothian, Waxahachie, all right, those have become some serious new construction hotspots, but they don't currently have any Drees communities. Still, the overall reach they have, pretty impressive. All right, they've got options spread across several different regions. So because of that wide coverage, I'm giving their location a solid A. And the only thing keeping it from an A+, right, is the lack of presence in those southern areas. But for most buyers, right, especially those focused north or west, Drees has plenty of solid locations to choose from. Now, we've talked about choices when it comes to where, but let's talk about how many homes you have to choose from, okay? So we're talking volume, how many choices? Well, as a builder, Drees Homes is definitely more focused on new builds than it is on quick move-ins. So across their 23 communities, they currently have 68 quick move-in homes available. So compared to some other builders who have like upwards of 300 inventory homes at any given time, right, that's really not a huge number. This is important because many times you'll find a floor plan that you absolutely love, but it's in a community that you're not crazy about. And what are the odds, right, that you'll find that exact same home in a different community that you do like? With a smaller number of quick move-ins available, all right, those odds go down. And this also speaks to how exposed a builder is in the market. Builders with a lot of inventory tend to be more motivated and more likely to negotiate on price. So with fewer homes sitting on the ground, Drees may not have that same level of urgency. That being said, Drees gives you tons of options if you're going the new build route. So while you might not find a huge selection of move-in ready homes, they definitely excel when it comes to customizing a build from the ground up. But if you're hoping to move fast or want to avoid the wait time of building, their existing inventory might feel, a little limited. So for this category, I'm giving Drees a B+. Not terrible by any means, but definitely something to be aware of if you're prioritizing speed or flexibility in location. Now, you may be wondering, what am I going to be paying for all of these customization and design options? Well, overall, their price range does lean toward the higher end. And while there is some variety, all right, it's definitely not the widest range out there. So on the low end, they start around $450,000 in communities like Hillstead in Lavon. On the high end, they go all the way up to $1.8 million for homes on 100-foot lots in Harvest in Northlake. So yeah, that's a wide gap on paper, but in practice, it's a bit top heavy. All right, there's nothing in the truly affordable price point under $400,000, which cuts out a big portion of first-time buyers, or even those like on tighter budgets. Even in like the $400,000 to $500,000 range, there's really just not that much to choose from. You might find a couple of smaller floor plans in more rural or up-and-coming areas, but overall, your options are going to be limited if you're shopping in that price point. On the flip side, once you get into that $700,000 and higher range, there's a ton more to choose from. All right, you'll see large floor plans, oversized lots, and premium finishes, and a pretty good number of options over $1 million. So if you're shopping luxury, or you want to build something custom, like on a big piece of land, Drees is a great fit. I mean, they clearly focus more on the move up and luxury buyer than the entry level market. Because of that imbalance, lots of high-end homes, not a whole lot on the lower end, I'm giving their pricing range a B+, right? And that's not a bad score. And they do offer quality in every price point they hit, but it's more just the lack of entry-level options, and that does limit their accessibility for a large portion of buyers. All right, so we've talked a lot about great awards and high quality homes, but let's go ahead and take a deep dive into Google reviews. Do people actually like Drees in real life? So these reviews come straight from real homeowners and prospective buyers. So while they're not the full story, all right, they're definitely going to give you a feel for what people are experiencing on the ground, okay? And it's always an important area to look at when you're evaluating a builder's reputation and customer satisfaction. For example, the Walsh community, it has 17 reviews and holds a 4.1 star rating. Painted Tree is sitting at 4 stars, though it only has 4 reviews so far. Wolf Ranch has 23 reviews and a strong 4.8 star rating, which is one of the highest. Rough Hollow Vista Ridge has 9 reviews and is even higher at 4.9 stars. Harvest has 9 reviews as well, but it drops back down to 4.1 stars. So the scores are kind of mixed. There are communities performing really well with reviews in the 4.8 to 4.9 range, but then others are hanging closer to that low 4 range or even dipping slightly below. When you look at the breakdown, there are 10 communities with ratings of 4.5 stars or higher, and 12 communities that are at 4.4 stars or lower. So that gives us 22 communities total with review data. And overall, it's pretty split, all right? Some people are loving their experience, okay, others not so much. So let's look at a couple of direct review quotes, all right, to show you what the difference looks like in real life, okay? So here is a 1-star review from a frustrated homeowner. After 16 months, the house still wasn't complete. We closed with a 40+ item punch list outstanding. We had to close to keep our interest rate, had to beg to get the items addressed despite not moving in for a month and giving them key box access to finish. Gave up on many of the items. It is a job to keep up with getting Drees to address issues under warranty. So that's definitely not the kind of review you want to see, all right? Especially when it comes to construction delays and then like post-close follow through. Now, flip side, all right? Here's a 5-star review that shows a very different experience. We had a pleasant experience working with Missy when looking to purchase a new home. She heard our requirements, walked us through the model home, recommended a few floor plans, and collaborated with us on a few plan modifications. We liked that Missy was realistic in what can and cannot be done in terms of customization, and that added to Drees' credibility. That kind of transparency and helpful communication can make a huge difference when building a home. So how do we score reviews that are such a mixed bag, all right? Some really high, some not so great, not a ton of consistency from one community to the next. Well, for their overall Google review performance, I'm giving Drees Home a B, all right? They have enough reviews to get like a general idea of some buyers' experience, and barely half of those are what we consider, to be like an excellent review. Next up, it's time to talk contracts because this is where things can really make or break a new construction deal. Drees Homes has some pros and cons when it comes to what's actually written into their contracts, and it's super important to understand these details before signing anything. These clauses are one of those behind the scenes parts of the new build process that can have a huge impact, all right, especially to your wallet. Starting with the good news, Drees doesn't have any inspection restrictions. And what that means is that you can bring in your own third-party inspector during construction, and that's a big deal because some builders limit when or if you can do that, but Drees gives you the freedom to check the build quality at each major stage. But then there's the convenience clause, and this one's a little murky. All right, basically this clause allows the builder to back out of the contract at their own discretion if it's no longer convenient for them to continue. It's rare for them to actually use it, but just knowing it's in there means you're assuming more risk than you might realize. Another major thing to look out for, there's no appraisal protection. If the appraisal comes in low, you are responsible for covering the difference between the appraised value and your contract price. All right, that's gonna be a budget wrecker if you're not prepared, and it can even delay your closing if you're suddenly scrambling to come up with more money. And remember, a delayed closing can trigger even more costs, all right? Which brings me to the next point. Drees charges a $200 per day late closing penalty. So if for some reason you're not ready to close on time, right, maybe because of that low appraisal, or like financing hiccups, you'll owe an extra $200 for every day you're late. So that can stack up fast, and it puts a lot of pressure on you to keep everything moving smoothly, even when things are outside your control. Ultimately, the Drees contract isn't the worst out there, but it's not exactly stacked in your favor either. So between the convenience clause, lack of appraisal protection, and the stiff late penalties, you'll want to go in with eyes wide open, all right? So for all of that, I'm giving the contract a B. All right, it's workable, but it's definitely not perfect. So Drees Homes, all right, now you've seen the polished surfaces, but you've also seen, I guess what you could say are like the cracks underneath, right? Personally, if I were gonna buy a Drees home, all right, what I would do is immediately supplement my warranty after the first year with like a third-party home warranty. It's not gonna be as good, but I would still do at least that much. Then I would dig into the Google reviews in a huge way in whatever community I was considering. Because remember, some of the communities did rank pretty high. But, all right, if you feel like I've kept you from a financial landmine, All right, just know if you have a builder you're considering, I've probably made a review of it as well. So be sure to check out this playlist and I'll see you there.